Yeah.
All right, man. Mike Darter.
It's a little different.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I like it.
You like it?
I'm in charge now. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. How you been, man?
Good, man.
Cool.
Doing good. How you been?
Good, good.
Nice.
So this is gonna be videoed and recorded. So people listening at home, this is Mike Darter. Uh he's supposed to be the head honcho of this place, but it's me today. I'm Matt. I've been interviewed already. I work for Oklahoma City. Um I got some questions for you.
Yeah.
I got some answers.
Let's go.
Cool. Uh First off, man, tell me about your life, how you were raised and
Right.
kind of your upbringing and stuff like that.
So I was the youngest of six. So I'm in prison.
Hmm.
I literally remember when I was little, so I was youngest, and dad was a Methodist minister. So I literally remember like box of cereal, like a brand new box of cereal going around the table, and like being the last one, you get like maybe a half a cup of cereal and a toy and all the cereal dust, at the bottom of the box. That's one thing people make fun of me about because when I eat, I don't mess around. I don't talk. I eat. I'm usually done, full plate done before anybody really even gets started. Um, but yeah, I had four brothers, one sister, and my dad was a Methodist minister. So, we moved around
Hmm.
some. Some of the guests had talked before about, moving around, but if you're in a family that moves around, a lot of times you have to kind of prove yourself.
Hmm.
Luckily, I didn't really ever have to do that because I was young, because I was six. So when you have six kids, especially four boys, and we're always together for the most part,
Hmm.
uh, you don't really, you know, your brothers kind of take care of you. And uh, so I had one brother, brother that was closest to me in age, Mark. Um, he was, uh, as we got older, we became really close. He passed away when I was in junior high, going into high school. But so he looked like Kerry Von Erich, and he fought at the drop of the hat. I remember when we were still in Oklahoma City before we moved to El Reno, he was probably in maybe junior high, probably junior high, and he went to Mayfield, which is like 16th and like 16th and over to kind of by 16th MacArthur.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and he was walking home from there to like 23rd and Meridian, and I remember he got in a fight and he came home with glass in his head from like a bottle, and he just fought like he fought. PKs are like preacher kids.
yeah.
They're always the ones in trouble, the rebels, and uh, to an extent, I had a couple that were. Uh, he just fought all the time. So everywhere I went, nobody really, you know, mess with me because he was my brother.
Yeah.
And I remember one time but he fought for the right things for the most part.
Hmm.
He just stood up for himself and others. I remember this one time he was, he was, I think he was taking me to school or something. And there was a mentally challenged girl like trying to cross the street. And you could tell she was like scared to cross the street. So we're in his truck, he always had a rifle in his back, the back
Hmm.
window. He big hunted all the time. And uh, so he stopped his truck in the middle of the street, started holding up traffic, and walked this girl across the street. Well, while he was doing that, there's a truck behind him pulled up, these two guys, and they were like laughing and honking, and you know, they yelled some stuff out the window. I don't even remember what it was, but he got her across the street, walked back, and I thought he was getting in the car, and he went back and he just pulled the driver out and started beating his ass in the middle of the street. So that's the type of
Yeah.
guy he was.
Yeah.
So, moving around, I didn't really have to prove myself, but I did have to prove myself to him and my other brothers, which is kind of funny. My dad, before he became a minister, he boxed a
Hmm.
lot. And so he had all these boxing gloves around the house, and they would find the boxing gloves and put them on and just beat the shit out of me. I was the little brother, so I
Hmm.
would just, and then my mom would come and take the gloves away, and we had these little round pillows on the couch. They're like these real round pillows about like this, and they were just kind of thin,
Mhm.
flat pillow type pillows. And then they'd take those and tape them up, and we would go with those on. So yeah, I was a brunt of a lot of stuff until probably until when I was junior high. And I
Yeah.
remember I clocked him one time. Just he was like hitting me, come on, punk, and I just sent one straight down the middle, whack. And he had this look on his face like, and I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my ass beat.
No.
And from that point on, it's kind of different, but it was fun. Like growing up, I had a great childhood. We traveled a lot together, but
Mhm.
we didn't have a lot of money, so we were usually traveling, like, just driving
Mhm.
places. I don't even think I got on a plane till I was in probably high school. We had a lot of wildlife. My brother Mark hunted. David would hunt with him sometimes, and I remember we lived at 23rd and kind of by 23rd and Meridian, just off that a little bit, in the middle of a neighborhood.
Mhm.
And at one point, we had quail. My Mark would uh, raise quail,
Mhm.
so we had quail eggs, and we had pheasant, we had a fox, we had squirrel, we had ducks. We had little ducks that were out in our pool. We had a little kiddie pool for them, and then we had like it was just always he was always bringing something home. And
Yeah.
like if he was hunting, I remember he was hunting one time, and there was a fox that got hit on the road and had these babies, so he brought it home, and we would, feed it and raise it, and then, he'd re-release them most of the time. And so it was like crazy, like right in the middle of Oklahoma City in this neighborhood, we had all these.
Yeah.
It's like a zoo,
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it was good. It was I had a good growing up. We did move a little bit.
Did you move states or just move from house to house or
No, just like when I was in like elementary, we moved to El Reno,
okay.
and then I was in El Reno like I was a freshman, moved back to Oklahoma City. That was a big adjustment. And then I didn't have Mark because he had already graduated high school.
Mhm.
He passed away like right before we moved. And you know, up, coming to Northwest Classen from El Reno, a little small country school, you move to this inner city school that has a nursery for its students. Like
Mhm.
students would bring their kids in,
Yeah.
and it was just a shock. It
Yeah.
was like, that's crazy. And I was really worried about that change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know. I played basketball, so I walked on the basketball team. I was one only white boy on the basketball team, and or one of I think there was one other one at that time. And so I think I kind of got instant cred
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
But I remember walking on. I remember at the first day I walked on, I was freshman in high school, and these guys looked like they were 30 years old, man. They had goatees and beards and shit. And I was like, and I remember I blocked out Frosty, John Frosty. We called him Frosty. And I think he was probably a senior,
Mhm.
and blocked him out. And the next, we got down the court, went to free throw line, and we're standing on the line, kind of leaned over on our,
Mhm.
hands on our knees, like resting at the line. He just looked over me and said, do that one more time, I'm gonna whoop your ass. And I was like, sub, I was like, I'm out.
No part of that.
But I ended up sticking with it. And so I think that probably helped in that sense.
Yeah.
I was scared to make that change. And then that it was funny that year, we actually went to state Northwest Class and we played El Reno, beat them in
Mhm.
state. And then so I saw all my, old friends, and
Yeah.
they weren't too happy about it. But
Yeah. So, I mean, for those that don't know, my dad is still a police officer,
Mhm.
and you and him were partners. So when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be a cop pretty early. I was kind of raised around that. with you being a preacher's kid,
Yeah.
what led you to wanting to be a cop?
Well, I actually wanted to go in the Marine Corps. Like, that's all I ever wanted to do. Growing up watching movies like Hamburger Hill and Rambo and, Navy SEALs and
Mm,
all those movies at that time. Uh, like, I just wanted to be a Marine Corps. And I thought the Marine blues, like dress blues, are just like, the best uniform ever.
mm,
And so out of high school, I was actually going to enlist. And I didn't tell, I didn't tell my parents or anything, but uh, I had already been accepted to OU, but I went to enlist and I had asthma as a kid. And I don't think you could have it past like the age of 12.
mm,
And I think the last documented episode is like 15. So, I went through a short process and they're like, yeah, you know, you can't have asthma past age 15, so you're out. So I was like, well, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I got a call from OU saying, from the ROTC saying, hey, we can get you through ROTS. We can get you a letter. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went that route. And, I think because of my dad, just all of us kids ended up in some kind of service,
mm,
either teacher, teaching, or hospital, or um, law enforcement. And so, you know, I went back. So I went through ROTC and I went through the first year. And like right before the first year was over of freshman year at OU, they said, hey, we thought we could get you a letter, but we can't, we're not going to be able to get you in. And it was right after, I think it was at the first semester.
mm,
So I was pretty devastated. And the officer there, he could see it, and he was so cool. He's like, "Man, if you really wanna go and you don't have any problems, just go back. Don't tell them. Like, we don't keep records." This is back in the '80s,
mm,
So I was like, "Alright." So I went back, didn't tell him anything about it, went through the whole process, and on the last, uh, physical, I wanna say it's just right before you get sworn in, I had a kidney infection,
mm,
so I was out, and I was like it's like and I had my mom was real upset that I was gonna go, like,
mm,
she had a lot of sleepless nights over it, and I was just like it's like, "Okay, I get it, like, I'm not supposed to do that."
mhm,
So that's when I started looking at law enforcement, and, I went on a ride along with Tom Piccioni,
mm,
and man, it was like within probably 30 minutes, I was and it was on day shift, wasn't really
yeah,
like a whole lot going on,
yeah,
but I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do."
mhm,
So, I'd already started with a degree or that's, I guess, when I picked criminal justice
mhm,
as my degree, and, went from there. Like, it was just the minute I got in a scout car and kind of did a ride along, I knew. I was
yeah,
like, this is
yeah,
maybe this is why I, didn't and I look back on it and I still would have loved to go to the Marine Corps, but ultimately, like, where this led me
mhm.
was, this is exactly where I need to be, you know?
That's crazy. So I don't know if you know, but I applied for Oklahoma City
Uh-huh.
and ended up getting put on a wait list. Basically said you can't apply for 2 years. And I was young, had no job, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna go in the Marine Corps." And went, did MEPS, did the whole thing, got to the very end. They took everybody that was with me to go swear in, they pulled me aside and took me into the like, the officer's,
Yeah.
like, office. I was like, "Yeah, hey, what's going on, sir?" He was like, "Oh, we gotta take pictures." I was like, what?" He said, "Your tattoo." So I have a chest tattoo. It's a
Uh,
Bible verse.
uh-huh.
It says, "I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." And, I got it when I was 18, and it's from, shoulder blade to shoulder blade. Well, they were afraid it would show, if I didn't wear an undershirt. So they have to take pictures and they have to do a waiver and all these other things. So I didn't get to swear in that day. And I think it went on for like 5 or 6 months of
Wow.
not hearing anything, not getting back, no answer. We're still waiting on it. It was like one thing after another. So I was really excited to go. And then just kind of just getting let down after let down after let down because nothing was happening, and I'm sitting at home, trying to find odd end jobs because no one will hire you if they find out you applied to a police department and you're currently waiting to go, to boot
Right.
camp for the Marine Corps. And so I had nothing really. And then one day I got a call from the recruiter at Oklahoma City and they were like, "Hey, technically, if we start your application now, by the time it gets done, you'll be out of that window."
Ah.
And I said, "Well, I've applied to the Marine Corps. Like I'm waiting to hear back." And they said, "Well, you got to make a decision. Do you want to do the Marine Corps or do this?" I said, "If you haven't sworn in, you don't have any kind of,
Mm.
responsibility to that." So I called my Marine Corps recruiter, told him the situation. And he was like, "Man, listen, you've been wanting to be a cop your whole life." He was like, I'd be silly to tell you to put that on the back burner." He goes, "If they're going to take you, take you. And if they don't, we'll still be here."
Mhm.
And sure enough, got here and it's weird, but I got,
Yeah.
they turned down, but they put me on a hold for the Marine Corps. The very last thing too. It took me almost a year to try to get through that process and
Wow.
didn't end up working out. Yeah.
Well, I knew something because see, I thought you were in the military
Mm.
before. I guess that was it. That
Yeah.
I knew that you
I tried. Yeah, I
tried.
tried. I wanted to. And that my dad makes fun of me for getting a tattoo when I was 18, but the tattoo kept me out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And almost kept me out of the police department
Yeah.
too. They threw kind of a stink about it, but
Yeah.
with an undershirt, you can't see it. So
Yeah.
they ended up letting it go. So did you finish college? You got your degree and then applied to police department
Yeah. I actually applied my senior year
of college?
of
Okay.
college. So I applied my senior year. It may have been my junior year. It took me a long time to get on.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean,
Yeah.
this day and age, I say it's easy. It's still hard, but I remember the stories of back in the day
Yeah.
have, 7, 800 applicants and take 30.
Mhm.
It was an insane.
Well, and
Uh,
I knew Tom Piccioni, I knew Glenn Holcomb, a couple other guys, and they everybody said the same thing. Is said, "Man, it may take, you may not get hired your first time."
mhm,
So I went ahead and applied. I want to say it might have been my junior year or maybe in between because it took my entire senior year. And then I think I got notified like May of my senior year, like right before I graduated.
mhm,
So I basically graduated, mid May. And then I think it's June 14th or June 4th, I started the police academy. So I went straight from there in and just, you know, super young, felt pretty young.
yeah. What class were you out of?
106.
Oh, 06. Okay. One before my dad.
Yeah.
Have you been to the training center recently?
No.
They have a TV on the first floor that plays old
Oh, really?
class videos,
Uh-huh.
and I've seen you a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, running around. Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny to see.
It's funny. I went in like I played rugby at OU
Mhm,
and I was probably 220. Played second row, probably the best shape I had been up to that point. And I came out of the academy at 185. And they're like, "You need to gain weight." I was like, "You ran it off of me. You ran 40 pounds off of me."
yeah,
It was like crazy.
yeah.
So yeah, I felt like a stick.
I've heard horror stories of how much they
Yeah.
used to run people in those academies.
Oh, we did
Run.
at least 5 miles a day, sometimes more. And it was every day. And they didn't it was a one size fits all. And so that's one thing I wish they would have done differently is like different programs for different people. Cause
Mm,
you got some people who do need to run
mhm.
and lose weight.
Oh yeah.
You got other
Oh
people who
yeah.
need to gain weight. Then you got some that just need to maintain.
Mhm.
And everybody kind of gets stripped down
Mhm.
on it. So
Yeah. What was your favorite thing of the academy? You have like a specific block that you
Oh man, well, CDT. I mean, I had been doing judo for a while even then, so CDT was fun. I think shooting and driving would probably be my two favorite. I think it was either Scott Ballard or I think it was Scott Ballard and I won the challenge where we could shoot the Thompson
Mhm,
and then on the bowling pin
mhm.
deal. Um, so that was fun. Night shooting was cool. That was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, a lot of it was fun. I mean, but driving is just I guess driving, once you get on and go back to LEDT, like annual training,
Mhm.
that's when it really kinda gets more
Yeah.
fun, but
Did you
yeah.
guys go out to Burns Flat?
No, we actually did ours right in the
Right
parking
near the
lot.
pit.
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
that's crazy.
right there where the tower was.
Times have changed for sure.
Yeah.
Because now we go out for,
Burns Flat.
like 3 or 4 days, yeah, and stay out at Burns Flat and drive,
See, that would've been
do all the high speed driving there, and
yeah.
you're just kinda out in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty neat.
My daughter 2 of my oldest 2, uh, they actually got to go out with Brett Key.
No, really?
And he
Okay.
took him through he was with OHP
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he ran the driving portion for a while. And, he took them out and man, they loved it. They thought it was so cool. They still talk to this day about, what they learned from it
Mhm.
and why they think they're a better driver, even though I just paid for 2 new tires, in the last month for
Yeah,
curbs. So
yeah.
there's that.
Funny. So you were talking about CDT and your
Yeah.
judo background. I know that's kinda I've known you my whole life,
Yeah.
but I feel like I got to know you the most from your judo school.
Yeah. Your
And
dad helped a lot with that.
yeah, when you had that up off of what? Is it May?
It
Up off of
was
May?
it was up off of, it was way up off, Hepner Parkway or Portland and Memorial
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah.
That's when we first had opened up, and your dad was, helped out a lot then, and we only had, like, maybe 10
Mhm.
members, then we started doing kids, and then we moved to about 2 or 3 other locations
Yeah.
after that.
So what other martial arts have you done? You just strictly judo or you done other stuff?
No, I actually so when I was in at OU going through ROTC, I met a guy who was, he wanted to be a SEAL,
Mhm.
and he actually made SEAL training, and then he broke his shin or something in training and had to get out.
Mhm.
So I think he ended up going surface warfare, but his mom was Japanese and his dad was in the military. And so he told me, when he he and I were pretty good friends when all that happened. And he told me, he said, "Man, you really need to look at Aikido and Judo." And he had Japanese background, so he was more familiar with the Japanese arts. So there's, Aikido, Judo, Kendo, those type.
Mhm.
But he said, for police work, you really need to look at Aikido and Judo. And so I actually started with Aikido. And I know, a lot of people bash Aikido because of, certain people and
Mhm.
kind of that, but, you know, every martial art is great at what it's designed for.
Mhm.
And on the street, I would use Aikido 20 times a night because Aikido is great for joint manipulation and controlling somebody while you're handcuffing and searching. And, there's I think it's Codenary, like this wrist lock, and I
Mhm.
I would just get it, got to where I could get it really quick, even if somebody's pushing off of me or whatever.
Mhm.
And, so, Aikido is great for that. But, I got in Aikido early and then I learned judo and I just fell in love with judo.
Mhm.
And then, on the streets, it was kind of like you would use Aikido 10 times a night, but if they tried to fight back, it would pretty much Aikido was over with and it
Mhm.
would go to judo. But they worked well together
Mhm.
with each other. So I'm
Yeah.
ended up getting, I think, a second degree black belt in Aikido, third degree black belt in judo. And so yeah, I did that for 35 years,
Yeah.
close to it.
And now you own, help operate a gym,
OKC
right? Yeah.
Combat Sports, yeah.
Combat, yeah.
Yeah, we had a great group of people, back in the day, I had OKC Defensive Tactics. Piccolo had, I forget what it's called,
Matrix.
Matrix.
Yeah, Matrix.
But before that, we trained together.
Yeah.
Travis Cerna, trained with him. We trained with Lovato a lot, Junior. And uh, so over the years, we just built up this, pretty good, close group of guys.
Pretty good is
James
putting it
Head.
brightly, yeah.
Yeah.
But with John Combs,
Yeah.
Brian Piccolo, Travis Cerna.
Yeah. So that's the five of us: me, Brian Piccolo, Travis Cerna, James Head, John Combs.
Mhm.
James is the only one that's not law enforcement, but amazing guy. He fought, I think, 7 UFCs back in the day from around the 2004 to 2005 to 2010. Uh, so yeah, I try to stay in it, but the older I get, injuries, I never had injuries, when we used to compete. I mean, we competed all over
Yeah.
world police and fire games, international law enforcement games, Texas police games. Never had any injuries. About 50 hits, about 54, 52 is when I really started feeling it. And I still feel pretty good, but
Yeah.
it's just, trying to, it's not easy fighting with one wrist and one arm,
Those guys are
Oh,
high
dude.
level, very high level.
All those guys and the guys that come in, like the noon class is like, welcome to the Thunderdome.
Bro,
And you go in and it's on.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane the level of talent that shows up to that gym
Uh-huh.
on a day-to-day basis. I mean,
It is.
it is humbling. I get my ass whooped
Yeah.
a lot.
And the guys are just so amazing.
Mhm.
They're not, there's no egos in there. Um, I mean, it's just, I couldn't have asked for a better team to
Yeah.
be involved with. I remember when I put that out, I remember, uh, Travis and I had talked about, because I had closed mine down in 2015, and around 2019, 2020, I kind of started thinking about it. And I think around 2021, I just put a post out about, I heard a rumor
Mhm.
that and Brian Piccolo was the first one that responded. He was like, I'm in, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, it's cool for law enforcement. I know there's a lot that are law enforcement and a lot that aren't law enforcement that come there, but
yeah.
for law enforcement to have a place to go train and I don't want to say safe, you know what I mean? Like a
Mhm.
safe space. It sounds so cliche, but
Yeah.
a place where you can go and you don't have to have your guard up that
Mhm.
some dude hates you for what you do.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to be able to go train there for sure.
Yeah. And it was, back in the day, like when I started, it was, I first started training at 16th and Gatewood.
Mhm.
I remember the first time I went, in, it was, luckily it was early morning, but I was like, dude, this is like I thought I was going to get robbed going in to work out. And, didn't really know any of those guys. And, so yeah, it's nice to be able to have that,
Yeah.
I think it's come a long way,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
all training.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I trained at USA Stars,
Mhm.
I was a kid and
Mhm.
the judo was
Oh,
fantastic. And
dude. Yeah.
you'd go upstairs to go to jujitsu. It was just run by a guy, that was watching videos off of YouTube.
Mhm.
And then two of the dudes that were doing jujitsu were fresh out of prison and, they find out that you're a cop's kid and
Yeah.
roles are a little bit harder. Yeah. I had to learn quickly to defend
Yeah.
myself because it was game on. I mean, it was just wild. So
Yeah.
knowing that I can go to a gym now that's,
Mhm.
like I said, safe, people are chill, but there's still a very high level of
And man,
instructors there.
the guys down at, like Pat's Club back when I was in college, man, like Ron Tripp, Henri
Mhm.
Metzger. I mean, those guys were just,
Oh yeah.
it was,
Shelton Brothers.
super high up.
Yeah.
Brian and
Shelton.
Brandon. I mean, it was just super high level. and it was awesome to be able to train with a lot of those guys,
Mhm.
and I've always had huge respect for those guys,
Yep.
especially Ron Tripp. I mean,
Mhm.
know him fairly well, and Pat, man, even at Pat in his 60, 50s, 60s was
Bad man.
just yeah,
Bad man.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's tough. So you did judo, you did martial arts,
Mhm.
you're a police officer. Did you ever get to use anything cool on the streets? Any good foot sweeps or throws or anything you
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah, I did. Well, so, me, foot sweeps were always
Mhm.
you know, Horizon Komiyashi, Dashi, that was like Horizon Komiyashi was my favorite, foot sweep. And, um, but, remember, uh, I got a left side Harai Gosh one night, which is like my left side was just, it was horrible.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
right side felt great, Hani Goshi, Harai Goshi, but left side. And I remember we got into what was cool was we would, Mike Kelly and I, when we were partners, we were doing judo pretty heavy.
Mhm.
And the cool thing about it was we would have things happen on the street where we would actually get to apply this
Mhm.
stuff. And then we would have something maybe, you know, either not work or we just didn't have time to really think about something. And then we go in and we'd be like, hey, we had this happen the other night. And then we go, okay, go try that. So, we go out. But I remember one night, I think I was riding with Jimmy Martin, who was in the gang unit. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, right before we're about to get off. And this call came out and it was a man with a gun. And it was some crazy, like, red pants, yellow shirt, and a blue jean jacket walking down the street with a gun. And we were pretty close. We turned the corner and no shit, there was a guy with red pants, a yellow shirt, and a jean jacket walking. And I was on the passenger side. And as soon as we turned the corner, he turned and saw us. And we were still rolling. I'd already opened my door because I was going to try to get out quick on him. And he turned and he reached in his waistband and started pulling the
Mhm.
gun out. So I remember I kicked my door into him and it hit him and about knocked him down. Well, he takes off running, and then I take off after him. And I remember going around, we're going through this apartment complex, and I never really, it was one of those that I was probably about 10 feet behind him, but I never lost sight of him.
Mhm.
You can see him, you might lose just for a fraction of a second. And we turn this corner and I see him toss the gun over a fence into this like little patio area of
Mhm.
his apartment. And this guy he was probably my size. He's about 6 foot, maybe a little shorter than me. I'm 6'2", he's about 6 foot, but he's probably about my, 200, somewhere around there. And I'm running at him. And as soon as he tosses a gun, he just turns. He's like, what? And I'm running at him, and I'm trying to pull my gun back and my left hand's out. I'm like, start to push him back and I'm telling him to get on the ground, and he starts to push back into me. And when I had my hand on his chest, I just had his jean jacket,
Mhm.
so it's like a perfect L. And he started to push into me, so I just pulled him up on that hip, and I remember loading Harai, and we both went airborne. I remember seeing like the sky and the light up on the telephone pole. I remember seeing a fence and a car and the concrete. And he just went, head first straight down the concrete, and he was out. And, but the funny thing was we had to take him to the hospital, and, we were waiting for third shift to come out to get free to
Mhm.
relieve us. So we were working late, or we had to work a little late. We're at the hospital, and by the time we got done, we are best friends, man. That guy, he had a big old neck brace on, and when we got relieved to leave, he was like laying on the bed. He's like, all right, man, trying to give me a high five. I was like, all right, bro. I was like, yeah, take care, man. Don't run from the
Yeah.
police again.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I gotta the foot sweeps are the best.
Oh,
And
it's like
they
you're on a roller skate
yeah.
with the asphalt and the little rocks. Yeah.
Yep. It's my favorite thing to use for sure. So you got out of the academy, you were assigned patrol, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
That's what most do. What were some of your positions or what'd you do on the department?
So I
Patrol
went to
games.
I got out and I went to Hefner Division.
Okay.
So I kind of floated. I worked Baker 8 for a while, which is pretty far out north. And then I worked 2 some, which is kind of in between 10th Street and north. So I could go 10th Street quite a bit. But I didn't work there that long. I put in for Spring Lake because a lot of the guys who I worked with worked Spring Lakes and I really wanted to work more game
Mm,
activity. So I got to Spring Lake. I worked probably a year at Hefner, and then went to Spring Lake, or maybe a couple of years, because I think I was in patrol for 4 years before I went to Impact. So I think I did a year, a little over a year at Hefner, and then went to Spring Lake. And Spring Lake was, totally different. It was the east side of Oklahoma City, a lot of gang activity, um, and it was a lot of foot pursuits,
mhm,
a lot of car pursuits, and it was awesome. Loved it. And then I got into Impact, and that's where, I met your dad. Well, I knew your dad from even when I worked Hefner, when I was in Baker 8,
mhm,
he was working the Highlands. So we kind of, our dividing line was pinned. So we'd always meet up and talk and back each other on calls, every now and then. And so then when I got over to Spring Lake, I think he may have been in Impact a little bit before I was, or we've gone maybe about the same time. But it was funny. I remember thinking, okay, yeah, this is gonna be, I can do this, gonna be easy. And uh, the first day got smoked on a foot pursuit. I was like, your dad's giving me shit. And I just
mhm.
like, but yeah, it was fun.
Like, yeah. What, you asked me this, so,
Yeah.
so that's a good question. So I'll ask you the same thing. What's a call that stands out to you that you can kind of remember forever?
Oh man, there's a lot of 'em. I think you said it too. I mean, I remember a lot of funny ones, a lot of some that you're like scared shitless. And then,
Mhm,
I remember, so I'll go over a couple few that I remember. I remember the first one I remember that stands out in my mind just because it was like one of the first calls I took was a suicide. A guy blew his head off with a shotgun. And that really stands out because, it's like one of those things you see it and you're like, what is that?
mhm,
And just looks unreal, looks kind of like a mannequin.
mhm,
And he was in a bathtub and he had a shotgun with a tire tool through it,
mhm.
and he used his legs to. So that was kind of like literally one of the first calls I went on, and I was like, oh, okay, that's wild.
Yeah.
Um, and then one of the funny calls was, I don't know if you remember this guy, or if he was around when, but at Spring Lake we used to have this security guard who was an ordained minister. He wore a priest collar and he had Tourette's. And he was like this black security guard and he was awesome. And he's a convicted felon. And he would carry this big uh 357 around. And nobody really messed with him because like he helped us a lot
Yeah,
and he gave us great information.
yeah.
But he had Tourette's and he started everything with a bip and ended it with a bark, like a dog bark. And one night we were Mike Sharp and I got in a foot pursuit, and it was little cocaine in Prince Hall. And Prince Hall is the home of Prince Hall Village Crips, PHVC. And I think it was little cocaine. And we're running through. We take him down. Sharp takes his legs. I take his upper body, and I'm trying to get him. I have one arm, and he's trying to eat this bag of crack cocaine.
Mhm.
So we're like fighting him over that, just trying to get control of that. And next thing I know, we're surrounded. Like everybody comes out
Yeah.
and like they're getting closer. They're getting closer, like trying to kick us and shit. So I remember I had basically a case katami on the guy, and I think
Mhm.
I folded his arm like under my leg and I drew out and I was like, started telling people to get back. And this security guard ran in the middle of us. And he was probably, his 50s at the time. He runs in the middle, he like whips out this 357 and he like starts slinging it around, and he's like, "Everybody get back, get motherfucker zombies back!" And dude, like the whole crowd disappeared. It's like they were instantly transported to another fucking planet. I mean, it's like, where did everybody go? But he did that all the time, and you just be talking to him like this, and he'd be talking all of a bit, that motherfucker, somebody boom, and it just you'd be like, oh, what the fuck? But it was awesome. It was so funny,
That's awesome.
and we used to deal with him all the time. I don't know if he would have been on by the time you got on,
I don't think so.
but or been out.
Most of our security guards are.
Dude, he was funny. He would just show up in the middle of like we'd be walking down an alley and he'd pop out of some bushes. Hey man, come here. Like, the fuck? He was awesome though.
Yeah, no,
Super
we don't have. I wish we had security guards like that.
Oh man,
Most of them now are just kind of there.
he was
They
so
want to know what's going on. They don't have it. They don't ever have info for you. Yeah, I mean
they
they just
just
want
want
to
all
be
your
nosy.
info.
Yeah, they want to be nosy and
Yeah.
get people in trouble. Which is just terrible. Like we'll get some that'll come in. We're dealing with a family problem, and they'll come up. Hey, what's going on? I just need info so I can evict these people.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, dude, you don't.
Yeah.
They don't need to be evicted. They're fine. You know what I mean? It's none of your business. They did nothing wrong. Just leave them alone. That's what most of them are.
Yeah.
Now. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
I got one other story. And this is one that's it to this day when I think about it, fucking puts chills down my spine. But it was another when I was in gangs. We took a home invasion. I think it was the ninth in Kentucky. There's a fourplex.
mhm.
So and house turned into four apartments. And we get there, shots fired. We get there, we enter, and there was a older white male with half his head blown off from a shotgun laying on the stairs, like kind of right on entry. And then to our first right, the door was open. There was a black female, probably in her 30s, who like had her leg half her leg blown off. So we cleared that pretty quick and came back in and we were interviewing her. And I remember it was me, Mike Sharp, Helmer was there, maybe Jimmy Bradford. I can't remember who else there. But we're sitting there. And so imagine this house. It's like you got a little living room with the kitchen off of that, and then the back door, and then a little bedroom to the side. And it's just not very big.
Mhm.
But so we start talking to her. She said they ran out the back door. So we, cleared everything, cleared the building inside out, came back in, we're interviewing her, and she's sitting on the couch looking at us, and she's sitting at the front of the house. And behind us is a kitchen or the back door is. And we're sitting interviewing, she's telling us, they're like, yeah, there were three guys. And like, if I was her interviewing you, I was like, yeah, there were three guys and they came in with this gun and then they came and she just stops talking and looks, she's got this death stare behind us. And we're like, the fuck is she looking at? We thought they came
Yeah.
like she was looking like they came back.
Yeah.
Dude, we cleared leather so fast, we hit the ground, we were hitting the walls, we're like spinning, like what? And then she came back in and she was just in some trance and it was like freaked me out. It freaked all of us out. I remember it was just like, this feeling of like they're standing right behind me, aren't they?
Mhm.
And it was just so weird. It still gives me chills to think about that.
Dude.
But
Dead bodies always trip me out.
yeah,
I think they're gonna wake back up. We had a suicide where the guy had shot himself, and but the call was just the apartment door's open and there's blood everywhere. So we go up to the room and we're looking in the apartment room before we go to clear it, waiting on a couple more units, and there's like it's an apartment, so it's the living room, kitchen off, and you go into the back bedroom. There's a wall right there. The sectional sofa is just covered in blood, and not like drops of blood. I mean, covered, thick coagulated blood. Then there's bloody handprints on the walls behind it. There's a gun, and then there's like pieces of jaw and like teeth on the floor. and then there's a snail trail of blood that goes to the back bedroom, and then there's bloody handprints on the door frame, like someone's trying to stop themselves, from going back there. I remember looking at my partner, I was like, "We're gonna find someone chopped up in a bathroom, man." He was like, "I think this is a cartel deal." Like, he was like, I'm convinced
Mhm.
this is a straight up,
Yeah.
chop them up, torture them type deal."
Yeah.
So we go and we clear it. We go to the back bedroom, and I go right, they go left, and I get into the bathroom, and like the contacts aren't in the contact case. They're just off to the side. There's like blood in the sink. There's two teeth, like teeth pieces in the sink.
Mhm.
The bloody toothbrush, like this person had tried to do their nightly routine. Well, they're like, "Hey, we have him here. He's in the bed." And he's just laying in the bed, and like a 1000. He just kind of opens his eyes, and he's like, and just tries to talk. And it made, it made every one of us jump. Everyone, to this day, anytime I'm around a dead body,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
So I assume the guy died?
no.
He lived?
I think he lived. Yeah.
Wow.
They had him, they were working him. I guess he had missed and basically just
Mm,
took off the bottom part of his jaw.
mhm,
Um, that's kind of what sucks about the department is you don't get,
mhm.
you don't really get to follow up on that
Yeah.
kind of stuff unless like a detective's assigned to it. But I remember him getting in an ambulance, him going to the hospital, and he was alive.
Wow.
They said he was critical, but like they thought he had missed, everything
Yeah.
major. He's just gonna have some deformities type deal. And I've always wondered if he actually lived or
Yeah, or
just
what
lived past
happened.
that moment. Yeah, because it was one of the wildest things I've ever seen for sure.
My brother, Kyle, worked, when he was a officer out in Enid, and he had one where the guy had killed himself, and they get there and he's dead. And Kyle, he's waiting for the, ME's office to come out. And so even if they're dead, they can still have gases
Mm,
and stuff in their body. And so the guy's sitting on his couch dead, and all of a sudden he starts going,
mm, no,
jaw starts going.
no,
It freaked.
he's saying
He was like, I'm not staying in this
it
house.
freaks me out
He went, yeah,
every time. Every time it freaks me out.
yeah.
Just no, not for me. No.
Yeah, it's weird. That one where the guy blew his head off. I remember we went in and we're kind of clearing this apartment. He is a check to welfare.
Mhm.
Hadn't been seen in days. And we go, the apartment complex lets us in, and we go in. I'm in one bedroom, and it's during the day, but the shades and everything are down, and no lights were on. And I remember it was at my FTO. He said, "Hey, man, I think there may be a dog in here," because he thought either I think he saw what he thought was dog shit,
Mm,
and he turned the light on, and it was brains. It
mm,
was just a clump of brains, and there was, like, in that one, it was a pretty small bathroom, and, like, you could see the guy's bottom lip, but everything from the bottom lip up was gone,
mhm,
and, there were just, like, chunks of skull everywhere. Blood, blood and brains on the ceiling, on the
mhm.
walls. Uh, yeah, and there's like a bowl, a little chunk of skull,
It's just
like,
weird. It's
on the
weird.
ground.
Yeah.
It's just super
You're
weird.
weird. The way the body reacts to a firearm or like a shotgun,
Yeah.
something that powerful, it just puts pieces kind of everywhere. There's no real rhyme or
Yeah.
reason.
Unless it's a smaller caliber. I remember one night we had a call, and it was a pretty bad deal, but it was a older couple, like an elderly couple,
Mhm,
and I guess they were fighting is down on 10th Street, drunk. They've been drinking, and they're fighting, and I guess the husband was like, "Oh, you want me to just," and he picked a gun up, and it was I think it was a 22. Pretty sure it's 22, but and from what she was saying, she didn't think he'd ever do that, but yeah,
mhm,
he would pull the trigger, and, no exit wound, and that
mhm,
pressure, I remember
mhm.
when I got there, that pressure was just kinda pushing everything out.
Yeah. They just rattle around too. Like that little
Yeah.
22 just kind of bounces around.
Bounce around the skull, yeah.
It's weird. They have a lot of people. I say they. I've just seen. I've noticed a lot use a smaller caliber.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they use a little 22 and do it. And
Yeah.
it
Well, I guess if
that's
you
the
wanted to
job.
do it, that would probably be the way to do it,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
She got a shotgun and a tire tool laying around.
Yeah. The shotgun would definitely. Oh man, definitely do it.
Yeah.
They're never pretty ever,
Yeah.
ever, ever. We're getting up to your shooting, but I got a question that's more important right now.
Yep.
So I have known you forever as Dart Man. See, my dad called you forever. But I've also heard you have some nicknames. One of them being Darter the Party Starter.
Mike Darter, the party starter.
Darter the Party Starter. Yeah. You want to
Yeah.
elaborate on some of these nicknames?
You know, it's funny, like, I've had nicknames since I was a kid, and I've asked some other people, you know, "What nicknames you get?" And they don't really have any nicknames. Like, ever since I was born, I had a nickname. Like, all my brothers, like, one was Bow Cuckoo, Mark was Best Friend, I was Ballin' Squallin' Brat because I was the youngest,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, all through my life, I had all these nicknames, and, like, in high school, being the white boy basketball player, uh, my nickname I had like 4 there, Shadow, the White Knight, White Chocolate, uh, the Token Knight, but Shadow was like one of the main ones. "Shadow, what's up, Shadow?" And then, like, again, the police department and, like, when I played rugby at OU, they called me RoboCop because they all knew I was trying to get into the police to the
Mm-hmm.
on the police force. So they called me Robo or RoboCop. Um, and then when I went to the police academy, like starting off like Tidwell, you remember Bobby Tidwell? So like he was a badass. Like
Yeah.
that guy was
Yeah.
legit. He taught our CDT and our CDT dude, we were like black and blue like the
Mm-hmm.
whole time. And he called me Darth
Darth.
and for I guess Darth Vader. And then they called me what was the other one? It was Darth and Dolph because of Dolph Lundgren,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And the Rocky deal. And then, I get out on the on the working and Dartman was one
Mm-hmm.
and stuck. And then uh yeah, Mike Darth the party starter kind of came probably around Impact because we were young and we were partying quite a bit back then. And then forgot what some of the other ones were, but I just had all these nicknames, at different points in my life.
Yeah.
Um, when I went into gangs, one of the funny things was the first night I went out, he's a young, like 15-year-old little banger. He stole a car and he's a little heavy set. And he didn't know who I was. But what's funny was we got in a short little pursuit and he pulls up in this alley, but there's fences and he can't get his car through. So he has to stop me and gets out and he tries to run. So I get out and I'm like starting to chase him and I see him and he's like trying to wiggle through the fence and the car, he's not fitting. So I just kind of walk up to him and I'm like, "Yo, man, what's up?" And he's like, he had this real raspy voice. He's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "You new?" And I said, "Yeah, I am new." He goes, "What's your name is?" I said, "Darter." He goes, "Oh, all right, Dart man." Like immediately,
Yeah.
like he can't, like he'd never heard of me, but the first thing he called me was Dart man. That's what your dad always called me.
Mm-hmm.
I think your dad was probably one of the first ones, to call me Dart man. I don't know, but yeah, I had some good nicknames
Yeah.
over the years.
Dartman. Dartman will forever be like the nickname that sticks to me. I thought that was your name.
Yeah,
For 15 years of my life, probably was just
yeah.
Dartman. That was it.
I got one story I got to tell about walking Brazil. This is a funny story, and it's not my story. I was there, but I wasn't there. I think it's Tim Hawk and Moose did
Mhm.
it. But so that guy, he robs a store down on Linwood, and it's a convenience store, and it's an Indian, like God not feather,
Mhm.
and they go in, and the guy's like, "This motherfucker robbed my store. He come in to rob my store." He's like, "Give me your money," and he's like making this voice, and they're like, and he's describing him. And I think it was Tim that was like, "Wait a minute, was this guy like this tall?
Yeah.
This what we would look like this? And he had his raspy voice. So they run up and sit on his house. And he comes bebopping down the street. And he's like walking down the street. And he they they go out on him and he's like, "Yo, what's up, guys?" He's like smoked black and mild since he was like
Yeah.
10 years old. So he had this real raspy voice. So they go out on him and they're like, "Hey, we need to put you in the car, pat him down, put him in." Well, they drive him down to do a lineup, not
Yeah.
lineup, field identification. So
Photo
they
lineup.
they pull in and the guy comes out and he's like, "That's him. That's a motherfucker, Robbie. That's a motherfucker, Robbie." And he's in the back seat and he's like, "Man, how he know it's me when I have my mask on?" So I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Tim and Moose, and they were like, let me write that down in
Yeah.
the report.
Dude, they're not bright. They're
No,
not bright at all.
no, the smart ones become attorneys in Congress.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you're shooting, you were in Impact when it happened.
yeah,
That's kind of how I got to know you was
yeah.
from Impact because you and my dad were partners.
Oh, yeah,
You want to
yeah,
talk about what Impact was? I know when I got interviewed, we kind of
yeah,
briefly discussed it. I've always called
yeah,
it like the division problem solvers,
yeah,
and they've gotten rid of Impact. It's now
yeah.
kind of broken up between a crime unit and a street narcotics unit.
Mhm.
They don't do the all together thing
Yeah.
anymore, but
Well, it's funny because Impact actually was the second, like before I got on, and when I was in the police academy, they had the fast unit. And I think it was like a felony apprehension and surveillance team, something like that. But the fast unit, it was the same thing, each division. So Oklahoma City, 4 divisions,
Mhm.
each division had their, you know, in Oklahoma City, like detectives don't work at each briefing
Mhm.
station. So you have the 4 quadrants that have patrol divisions, and then the investigator division investigates citywide,
Mhm.
whether it be homicide, robbery, sex crimes, whatever. And so, and then they had the vice guys, and then they had the undercover special projects guys. And so they wanted to have, kind of a buffer in
Mhm.
between that could work. Like a lot of the special projects guys are working pretty big cases, a
Mhm.
lot bigger cases, and they work a lot of federal cases with DEA and ATF and so forth. And so that left a lot of the like street level
Mhm.
dealers and stuff that needed to be addressed. So the fast unit, which that would have been a cool unit to work because it was more something like, it was like they would, whatever it was, armed robberies, whatever, home burglaries,
Mhm.
during the day, they would just go and they would start hitting the neighborhood in unmarked cars and just start walking neighborhoods, walking streets, going, sitting in freezers for armed robberies or whatever, which
Mhm.
that would have been a cool team. For some reason, they stopped that and created Impact. And, now today, Impact has stopped and now they
Mhm.
created, it's kind of the same thing with the gang unit. The gang unit is no longer around, but and that was what was one of the cool things about Impact because, and you've talked about it, everybody else has talked about it too. When you're a street cop, you take a call, you never really know what happens on that
Mhm.
unless you get called to testify in court
Mhm.
2 years from now. So you really don't get to follow, what happened. And if it's a case where it's you know, uh, involving, children or if it's a, attempted homicide or, some, pretty violent crime, it'd be nice to follow up on that. And that's kinda that kicks to detectives, and then the detectives work it goes to the DA's office if they file charges and whatever, but, so that was the cool thing about Impact was you gotta work everything. You gotta, you know, make your own arrests. You get to do your interviews on them. You get to investigate, whatever it was
Mhm.
going on. And that was kind of one cool thing. And the impact units kind of were different with different divisions. Like on the east side, we dealt more with crack
Mhm.
and that that was it. On the south side, they were dealing more with like, different stuff. But it ended up kind of being more narcotics, more of a street level
Mhm.
narcotics unit than anything else, even when I was on. But, you had like we had a great lieutenant and he would talk to if the FBI was looking for somebody, Secret Service, whatever, if our detectives were, if there was some robberies going on,
Mhm.
then we would be able to do that kind of like the fast teams, like
Mhm.
the fast, we'd get to go up and surveil, these trucks were getting robbed. We could, pull surveillance on them and try to catch them in the act, uh, stuff like that. But, and over time, it's funny to see how things just kind of, for one reason or another, and what kind of the sad thing is, it's usually because somebody doesn't like somebody
Mhm.
and they feel like, this person is doing this or something. That's where it starts. And then it kind of snowballs into this deal against the team. And then they shut the team down and they turn around and create something just like it and take some of the same guys over, but then get rid of the ones they
Mhm.
don't like. And it's like, why don't you just get rid of the ones you don't like?
Mhm.
What, instead of making all the changes. I mean, I know they went through that with the motors,
Yeah, they had I mean, they're the same the tasks that you guys were doing are still getting handled
Yeah.
just by different units now. Like,
Yeah.
we have a violent crime team that goes after the robberies and
Hmm.
the violent crime stuff, and then we have, each division has a crime unit, and those crime units do everything. They don't want them to work dope, but they'll work all your stolen property. They'll do buybacks from people, like, on Facebook or whatever, or try to set that up to get stolen property back, or, um, guys with warrants, like our crime guys are great about shooting over bulletins with guys that have
Hmm.
warrants that are, local in our area. Like, hey, this dude lives roughly around here, good luck, see if you can go find him type of deal.
Yeah.
And they'll push out stuff, intel basically to us, or they'll go up on something and then they'll call patrol to come help or, as they need. And then we have the street narcotics unit that does all the low level
Hmm.
narcotic stuff now. But it seems like lately they've been doing major dealers too. You know what I mean? They're getting hundreds of pounds
Wow.
of black market weed,
Yeah.
from Chinese nationalists and stuff like that,
Mhm.
where they're getting, pounds of meth.
Yep.
And then they kind of work with the project. So it's the same. The task is still getting handled, but
Mhm.
they have split it up now, between different units, which is, it is what it is,
Mhm.
but it's still getting handled. So it's weird to
Yep.
see that progression. Like you said, you have Impact was kind of doing it all,
Mhm.
just divided it up into different people now to do the same job, which
Different name.
all three of those units are still insanely busy. It's crazy how hooked up they stay. They don't
Mhm.
very rarely are they sitting around doing nothing.
Mhm.
They're always going, going, going. So we definitely need more manpower. I know it's a huge problem right now.
Mhm.
Uh, anyway, you're shooting.
Mhm.
You said you're an Impact. Do you want to go over that now?
Yeah.
Take us through it, how it happened, what it was.
Yeah. Um, so, you know, even though there are quadrants and you basically work your division, there
Hmm.
are things that bleed over.
Yeah, yeah.
And on this case, you know, uh, been an impact for a while. Mike Kelly and I are partners. He's an awesome guy, awesome partner. Um, and so we had an informant. So, uh, you work with an informant, and whether it be somebody you arrested or somebody else arrested, or they get fed to you, hey, this
Mhm,
this person wants to work off charges.
mhm,
So you go to the DA's office, you're like, hey, this person has information on all these dealers. Can we use them? And then the DA's office has to notify you if they can sign off
mhm,
on that. And over time, they become reliable. Um, and that's usually after, a number of bills that go
mhm,
that that prove to be reliable. So we had one that was reliable, and we got into, uh, it was a lot of meth. And so it was leading us out of our kind of division
mhm,
into some other areas. specifically like Will Rogers division, center part of the city, south side. And so she had a guy who was just out of prison, and he was a white supremacist gang member, uh, dealing, pretty violent guy. And so uh, went over, did a buy out of the house, and typically they'll go in, come out, and you debrief them, kind of go through what all and happened. And in this particular case, he had a firearm, and he was saying that he shot two guys who tried to pull a home invasion on him, two black guys.
Mm,
So, um, the gun was a big revolver. She said it was, this huge revolver. Ended up being 357. Um, and so we went back and we uh, ran that information through CAD and 911 and hospitals,
mm.
everything. We couldn't find anything to verify that this actually happened.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a female informant. And so we thought, he's probably trying to brag,
Mhm,
impress her. Uh, so, but at the same time, it was like, well, he's already got this in his mind. Uh, he is convicted felon. He's done prison time. He's out. And so in Impact at the time, like I said, you would do all your own investigations. And then when it came to, you would, you would go to get a warrant, and then you go to the judge's house and they'd sign the warrant, and then you go back and we would actually run our own
mhm,
warrant. So we would kick in the door, we had a slam, hit the door and flood the house. And so it's this team that you do everything. And at the time, we were training a lot. That was probably like the peak of my training. Like Kelly and I were at the range all the time. We were on the mat all the time doing judo.
mhm,
We were in good shape. Our whole team was training with the TAC team quite a bit. In fact, I think our team, we kind of started this process, and I'm pretty sure it started with our team because of our lieutenant, Bybee, uh, to where we actually trained with the TAC team, or they would kind of train us on entries.
mhm,
Because when they first started Impact, it really was like the Three Stooges. You would see these, they would have news reports of these entries and guys like two guys getting stuck in a doorway
mhm,
type of deal. And so we started doing more and more training. And in fact, the day before we did a training drill that became pretty instrumental that I'll talk about as we go. But so we were, very well trained, but we still had to kick it. Something like that, where you have a violent felon,
mhm,
violent criminal who is bragging about shooting somebody who did a home invasion, that is a very high risk warrant.
mhm,
So it's an immediate entry. We got the warrant. We kicked it to the TAC team, and the TAC team is a tactical unit, SWAT team. Um, in Oklahoma City, they call it the TAC team. And it's not a full time team, but it has a full time designated team of
mhm,
guys, two teams, and you have your entry guys, you have your sniper guys team. And uh, so they kicked it back to us and said it's too high risk. And it was like, what does that mean? Like, uh, too high risk. I mean, that's what you do. And to me, I was kind of like, what does that mean? This guy just gets a pass? Like, like, what does that mean?
mhm,
And something happened. And Mike and I were talking about this not too long ago. He didn't remember what I remember happening was a 14-year-old girl had gone over to buy marijuana from this guy, and he ended up raping her. That's what I remember. something happened to the point because I remember I walked into Bibby's office and I said, "We're gonna hit this warrant." And, that's not something a sergeant would say to a
Yeah,
lieutenant,
yeah.
but I was pissed.
Mhm.
And I was like, "We're gonna hit this warrant." And he said, "Put it on the board," which in that moment, I was like, had a super high respect for him because I was like, You're gonna let us do this?" Like, and he's like, "Yeah, you got a problem with it?" I said, "I don't have a problem with it if you don't have a problem with it." So we put it on the board, which means, you draw it up and put the layout of the house the best you can tell from surveillance and um, get the team ready and who's going to be number one through, 8 and who the uniformed officers are going to be. And at that time, uh, Mike and I were always number one and two. He was number one. I was number two. I was 6'2". He was about 5'10". And so, because of the height difference, he was one, I was two. And, uh, there's a thing called like the funnel of death.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's generally what, 2 and 3?
Mhm.
The one is most likely going to make it in the house and make it through by the time they react and start firing. Number 2 is gonna be coming in. So we, put it on the board, we get this ready to hit this house and, you know, get the team ready, get the officers ready, and, so we go to this house and we're we would had an unmarked van, like the old school
Mhm.
big slide door van, and then, as soon as you turn the corner, you'd slide it open and, everybody's doing their last minute checks on the weapons and everybody's getting ready. And I remember, uh, and this is where it almost kind of like went slow motion in this part because I remember we turned a corner, slid the door open, and we're ready to unass the van. And you got, your slide. I mean, you got your slam
Mhm.
1 and 2, and then you go. And as we slide it open, we're coming to a stop. The house next to the house, because we don't park directly in
Mhm.
front of the house, there was a kid playing out in the front yard, and his dad like ran off the porch, grabbed him, and ran back in the house, slammed the door. And like at that moment, I knew I was like, all right, this is like it's it's on. Like
Mhm.
this is gonna happen. And it was like that just a foreshadowing type deal. That it was just real weird to see,
Mhm.
like with all the intel that we already had, and then to see that happen. And so we go to the door and it was immediate entry, slam, take a half second and then enter. And so as I'm going in, at that time we were running dynamic entries. So it was like we would flood a house, a 15, 1900 square foot house, we'd flood in seconds,
Mhm.
because you're just going dynamically through the house. There's no, stop and hold,
Mhm.
limited type entries. And so as soon as the door went open, we paused. Mike went in, and whatever direction he goes, I go the opposite direction. So he kind of went right. There was a wall there. He kind of went forward along that wall. So I came in and, you know, took that first corner. In his open room, there's a guy laying on the couch, and he had what ended up being a 357, and he rolled it up. And as he was coming up, um, everything went like slow motion. And I saw this huge muzzle flash, and I thought he just shot Mike
Mhm.
because all I see is this gun coming up, and then I see this muzzle flash. So I engage him immediately, and I'm kind of stuck in the door. Mike and I are the only two that have made it in the house at this point because I just turned and it was right there. So I engaged him um, and shot, ended up shooting 4 times. And it was real weird. It was like I didn't hear even that first, I saw the muzzle flash. I didn't even hear that round. And then my rounds, I remember hearing, but they were very light
Mhm.
pops. But I remember seeing the casings spin out, and they were hitting the door, and I think 2 up, and then they were going behind me, and I think one of the casings, at least one, went down Mark McCaleb's and got stuck in between his vest and his skin.
Mhm.
It was, like, burning him,
Warm, yeah.
and so and then I saw, I saw the entry wounds, and as he rolled up with that gun, my first shot was in the back of his hand, and that's because I had tunnel vision
Vision.
and
Mhm.
everything. I was focused on that hand and that gun, and I saw the entries, like in slow motion. I
Mhm.
saw the entry go into the hand, and the blood, and then I was using those entries as reference points.
Mm.
So basically, just shot hand up his arm, but the way he was laying, they were going through and into his body.
Mhm.
So fired 4 rounds. On that first round, he kind of, knocked or he
Mhm.
dropped the gun because it hit the back of his hand, and he was trying to pick it back up. So I fired like 4 immediately, and he was still, like, trying to get control of that. So I paused just for probably, a fraction of a second, and then 3 more rounds. And then and, all those rounds were on target, and so I knew at that point that, uh, that was over. I saw the foam
Mhm.
coming up through his nose, and he started to go into the fetal position. The gun was still on his stomach, kind of at the couch, but he had started to fetal up and,
Mhm.
so I paused, and at that point, I still thought Mike had got shot because I thought he got around him. So I quickly turned, just long enough to look at Mike, and he was tap wrecking. Or what happened was when he entered, he went forward and he saw the guy rolling up too. So he kind of got a quick shot off,
Mhm.
but it was not strong hand. And he had a SIG 226 and it stovepiped.
Mm.
So he was tap racking. Um, and I saw him and I immediately came back to cover the guy on the couch. But I remember telling him I saw this dark hallway behind him because the room went in and then back to the right, and he had this hallway behind him. So I looked right quick, came back to cover, and I said, and I was, kind of patting my arm like, get here, like now, like
Mm.
we're going limited from this point on. And I remember saying, watch your back because of that dark
Mhm.
hallway. So I'm tapping my arm coming back to cover this guy. And so I had auditory exclusion. I had, tunnel vision, all that. Well, by that time, which is maybe a second later,
Yeah.
everything kind of opened back up. And as I'm tapping my shoulder to get him to come back over, I hear 5 shots, like, "Pow, pow, pow," like just loud.
Mhm.
I'm like, what the fuck? And I look over and he's moving quickly toward me. So and the rest of the team had kind of lined up on the
Mhm.
house, and there's a kind of a small porch. So I exited, he came right behind me, and we went the other way on the front of the house. And it was like the porch. I stepped off the porch and like, raked my shin going down the
Mhm.
porch. So we went to the corner. I reloaded, was telling people get on the back, cover the back door, as I looked at Bybee and Bybee was out in the front. And then I turned back and like everybody, like Bybee was and other officers had taken cover behind the cars, but I could see him over the car.
Mhm.
And then I look back up and another guy comes out, like stumbling out of the house, and he's just got this huge gaping wound on his chest. And I'm like, who is that? I reloaded. I remember I dropped the live round on on the ground right there. And I was like, looked at Kelly, I was like, who is that? And he goes, that's a guy you said you saw behind me. And I was like, I didn't see anybody. I saw a dark hallway behind you. So he comes out, collapses. He's down on the front porch, and he ended up getting. a lucky shot. So what happened was, Mike was probably 5'9", 160 pounds or so. And this guy was probably about 6 foot, 240. And he came from that dark hallway I saw, and he grabbed Kelly around the neck and grabbed his gun and tried to pull him back into that hallway. Well, Kelly turned and he just turned and fired one round, and he ended up getting a lucky great shot in his arm, entry, exit into his chest, and exit in the front. We were both shooting 45 caliber. I had a Glock 45, 21. So I had a 45 caliber. He had the P226. And so we're like looking at each other like, what the fuck? Like, and at that point, I was like, man, there's a freaking militia in this house. I was thinking this house is full, like lock it down, like get in the back. And just the shit that was going through my mind was just, the absolute worst thing that could happen. And so anyways, we have to re-enter. And I look out and Bobby's like, go, go, go. So like we re-enter. And so Kelly and I were number 1 and 2 back in. And I remember running along the couch into the kitchen, and that guy he was done. Ran into the kitchen, and we cleared that while everybody else went to the back of the house. Cleared it all, and I remember we're in the kitchen, and I was, like, covering the oven. Like, I had my gun on the oven, and I was, like, looking at Mike, and we were looking at each other. I was like, "Holy shit. Did that just happen?" Like, still trying to, like, "What happened?" Like, we were both just looking at each other like, "Shit." We didn't know what to think. And, we realized there was a door behind us that went out to the garage, but it was a converted garage. So there was no garage door, it was converted garage. So we're like, "Oh, shit, we gotta clear this." So we open that door, it's a bedroom, but it had this, like a half wall that went out right by the door, and you could see a bed laying there, and then it kinda went around this wall. So we cleared everything we could, and we had to clear around that wall, which ended up being like a little open closet. And, so we, cleared everything, and he was going low, I was going high, and we were gonna clear this, and we were gonna kinda, put our knees on the bed and go hook around this corner. Well, it ended up being a water bed. So the minute we put our knees down, we start rolling over this bed, and I'm just like, "Get me the fuck out of this house." It's like a freaking, carnival house. It was, like, crazy. So we cleared that, ended up leaving, and, so yeah, that was the deal. I remember, uh, you know, a lot of the warrants we ran, especially on the east side, I mean, those houses were moving so much so fast, like, by the time we hit it, we'd get crumbs, you know, and I remember, that was a mid-afternoon. I had to go to the hospital because my leg, and had to go to homicide, had to go to firearms to have them do ballistic testing on my gun, on both of our guns, and so by the time we got done, it was, 8 hours later, and I remember I got home, sitting on my couch and still trying to figure out, like, "What the fuck? What happened?" Like, trying to remember everything, and I remember getting the call when I was sitting on the couch, and they said, "Dude, we got guns, there was a false bet in the truck, we got cocaine, we got marijuana, we got everything." And the relief of that, at that time, it was just like, "Oh, thank God thank God we got something out of it." You know, I ended up we ended up being off about 3 months on that deal, and it was one of those deals that was, real upsetting to us that, Bob Macy was the DA back then. He was awesome. I mean, and I remember him sending letters over, "Hey, you need to put these guys back to work," citing Chief Rehnquist on case law. And I remember after being off 3 months and doing an internal investigation where they never interviewed us. That's, you know, never interviewed us on their internal investigation. They call they call Kelly into the chief's office for the review, and they had taken because, we were both I think we were black belts in judo by then, both of us probably, and or at least brown, and, they had taken us off administrative leave just long enough to go have us both go through the instructor school for
Mhm.
custody and control, and then when we were done with it, they took us off and put us back on administrative leave. So that's another kind of bullshit deal, but when we were in the CDT instructor school, and they called and they said, "Kelly, we need you to come down for your review at the chief's office. Mike can't come." And I was like, Mike's coming. I was like, so I went down and I remember I was sitting out and they had like two or three chief and a couple deputy chiefs and majors in there. And, I went and I remember Phyllis, the secretary, said, "Mike, you're not supposed to be here." I said, "Well, I'm here and I'm going to sit right here, you know." And so he went in, and about 5 minutes later, they said, "Okay, well, bring him in." So I went in, and I remember they asked one of the questions was, the chief said, "Mike, have you ever been trained to shoot anybody like this?" And he made this motion. I said, and Mike was like, "No, and I never have." They're like, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "I've never shot anybody like that." It's like, "Well, didn't you shoot?" And they're like, "No." He pulled, and I turned and it was
Mm,
looking at him. And the whole thing, they didn't know what happened
mm.
after a 3-month investigation. They didn't even have the basics of the fundamental shooting down. And, so yeah, it was a pretty kinda hectic time. They sent Mike back to the streets because 'cause they're like, "Oh, we don't want you to second guess yourself again." But then they left me an impact, and I was like, "Oh, okay, what do you want me to you are you worried about me second guessing myself
Yeah.
again?" So I went back to impact, he went back to the streets, and then, I wasn't in, too much longer before I went to Gaines. And then, right at 2 years, the statute of limitations on that, we ended up getting sued
Yeah.
on that deal. So it's a pretty wild deal. Um,
I mean, so that's my question I have for you on that.
yeah,
I know you got sued, and I know that led into starting the company you started,
yeah,
or CCW Safe.
yeah,
If you can, what was the lawsuit, and how did that kinda, start
yeah, I
that
started that.
process of a super successful company?
Well, so it was a wrongful death suit. They were going after the department. They were also going after us punitively. Um, and
Just wait real quick. We'll go back and call that out. But when who was suing?
I'm about to get to, yeah, I was about to get, no, you're good.
They.
Yeah. So, what ended up being, the minute homicide came and took over that scene
Mhm.
and had it for a couple days, as soon as they released that scene, the dad's ex-wife broke into his house and stole all his shit. And then 2 years later, she's the one who ended up suing us on a wrongful death case. So, we went through that, and, because I was a member of the FOP, they took care of everything.
Mm.
They found the attorneys, they paid for the attorneys, they found the investigators, paid for the investigators, they found the expert witnesses, paid for that. In fact, we had Chuck Higby from LAPD, amazing guy. He came out and he was the expert witness in our case. He had, I don't know how many officer involved shootings he worked in LA. He was a frozen chosen from Chosin Reservoir,
Okay.
and just an amazing guy. Like, I learned more from him coming out as a expert witness than I learned in any of the classes I'd ever been to in law enforcement. And you go to a lot of classes in
Mhm.
law enforcement. You can
Yep.
go not just internal but externally. I'd been to some pretty cool classes, but that I learned so much from that. And that is what later, when we won the case, it got kicked out at summary judgment. So we were done. Years later, when I retired, left law enforcement, um, I remember I had my daughters and I was in Walmart and I ran into a guy who I put in prison. I recognized him, but he didn't recognize me, luckily. So it was kind of one of those things that it wasn't, nothing happened, wasn't a big deal. But I got home and I was like, man, I need some kind of protect. Like if something happens again, I had kids, accumulated a little wealth. I was thinking, man, I don't have an FOP anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Kyle, my brother, and I said, hey man, do you know he was a police officer and then he was an attorney and he was working catastrophic cases, like he was defending hospitals and doctors and these huge insurance cases. And he said, yeah, he said, man, I probably need to look at that too. He said, let me look around and I'll see what's out there. And he called me like, 3 days later and he said, man, there's nothing out there that's going to give us the same protection we had as police officers. He said, we need to do this. So, um, you know, we built CCW Safe and it took us about a year to build the infrastructure and the site and get how we were going to fund it and all that. And, we kind of built a plane in the air. And, I remember when we started because I worked once I left, did 10 years in Oklahoma City, left when I was in the gang unit, went to Dallas and then started working for ATF out of Dallas, 10 years there, then came back. I knew a lot of law enforcement in Texas and Oklahoma. And so we thought, let's do this and let's just do Oklahoma and Texas. That would be, a really good book of
Mm-hmm.
business a year and provide some really good coverage. And uh, so that's what we initially set out to do. And within 6 months, we had the whole country. And it was just one of those things that because I was sued in court and won the case and learned everything that I did from start to finish before the shooting to 2 years later, we built a whole, response team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things, Kyle, when he called me back, he said, man, there's a lot of insurance companies, but he works, he deals with these insurance companies in these cases that he was working on these. So he's like, it's insurance is not going to do what we need to do,
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, the way we set it up, the response, like I said, we're the only company that really has a response team. We have calls and we were the first company that uh, had a actual defended a murder one self-defense case in a jury trial. And I think still to this day, we may be one of the only
Mm-hmm.
ones that has done that. And that was in 2017. It was a case out of North Carolina, a Stephen Maddox case. And because of what, we knew from law enforcement, a lot of the other companies are either insurance based or attorney based.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have any understanding of law enforcement and how law enforcement works. And as far as on that side.
Mm-hmm.
So we're heavy on the law enforcement side. And so to be able to build up the response, you know, within 24 hours, we got boots on the ground. We have attorneys on the ground. Don West, who was one of the best defense attorneys in the nation, who defended the Zimmerman Trayvon Martin
Mm-hmm.
case. Like he was on CNN every day, like yelling at the judge. Like he came to us and was like, "I want to work for you guys."
Yeah.
He works for us now. I mean, we have retired homicide detectives we send out, and because of that, that really made us stand out in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what it led to was, I mean, without that,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't think that would have ever happened.
Yeah. Going back, you're in your shooting,
Mhm.
you go back to impact, you go to gangs, and you have to leave the department medically.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I didn't have to leave so what happened was,
I know that I've heard the story,
yeah,
and it's
I lost
insane, but
yeah,
tell
my
us.
left eye. So I left because my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, my we were having our first child.
Mhm.
She accepted a medical fellowship in Dallas. So I went, I had to go.
Mhm.
I couldn't live in Oklahoma City and her in Dallas with a newborn.
Yeah.
So I tried to, I was trying to talk to the partner and let me go. Like I could work a year on each end coming back and
Mhm.
forth and then take a year off. But they wouldn't let me do it. So I ended up having to leave because of that.
Okay.
But there was I lost my uh, left eye in an owl tried to rip my left eye out.
An owl,
An owl.
like the bird,
Like this,
just so everybody's
which
clear.
Kyle
The
told me,
bird.
when it happened, Kyle was like, "You mean to tell me you kicked in over 400 doors in Oklahoma City, violent criminals, and a furry little feathery bird takes you out?" One of those
Yeah.
deals. Yeah, so we can kind of get into that
Yeah.
story. So I was deer hunting with Mike Sharp. He was my partner in gangs, and we had gone out to Calumet, Oklahoma, right on the river.
Mhm.
We were deer hunting, and we were out there 3 days. And uh, so the first couple days, I saw a bunch of owls. Like I saw a huge great horn owl out there, and then some other like smaller burrowing owls. And so the last morning, I find this tree the second day that's just this perfect, like it's like a tractor seat basically,
Mhm.
like a little bit, and it's easy to get to. So I was like, man, I'm going there tomorrow morning, and so we get there super early, like we get out at 4:30 in the morning. It's pitch black, and so I get to my tree. He goes about 40 yards down, and the river kind of like a horseshoe around us. And I was sitting there for like not very long, maybe 30 minutes or so, or maybe a little longer. So I start hearing this deer blow like 30 yards to my right. And I'm like, man, it's like right there somewhere. Like, where is that? And I'm kind of looking to my right, and I hear some ducks flying, how they kind of garble.
Mhm.
And I remember kind of my head back. And when I turned my head, boom, I got hit from my left side. And it was like it hit hard. Like my whole face was numb. Kind of, I think it kind of maybe knocked me out just for a second or two. It
Mhm.
was just like, bam, it kind of hit. I was like, oh. And I remember I was sitting there and I was kind of looking and the blues of the morning just started to come in. And my whole side of my face was numb. And it felt like I got punched with a boxing glove.
Mhm.
Like it was soft, but it was
Yeah.
hard. And so I didn't used to wear glasses. I didn't have any eye protection on. And so I could tell my vision was off. So I reached up and I wiped my eye and it was blood. And I was freaking out. The day before, like 100 yards down, I saw a hunter
Mhm.
sitting on a fence line. And at first, I thought, man, I just caught around. Like I just got shot. I was scared to feel the back of my head because I was like, it's probably gone.
Yeah.
And then I had this fear, like I was in the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and there was like this predator alien out, and started freaking out. I went into shock. I jumped, I threw my shoulder, my rifle, got out of the tree, and I was looking because I've seen eyes like out before,
Mhm.
and I was kind of like looking on my shoulder, like, where's my, and I was calling for Mike, and Mike ran over, and when he got there, I was like digging through leaves, like I was like, where's my eye?
Mhm.
And he was like, he was standing above me. Is are you dreaming? Did you fall asleep or what? And I remember looking up at him, and he was like, oh my god. He looked at me and he said, man, he was looking. He said, I think it's still there, but we got to go. So we're about a quarter mile from the truck. When we started heading to the truck, and man, everywhere around us. like shots were going off. So we hit the ground. We probably spooked up deer all over. I think there were like 2 shots that went off, and, so we kinda crawled back to the truck, got to the truck, and, we had about a 50-minute drive back to, um, to Mercy Hospital, and, it's funny, I was trying to look at he had tinted windows.
Mm.
So I was trying to look at it in the tinted window, and he took this glove that was just muddy, like dirty duck glove from duck hunting, and he like threw it on my face. He goes, "Don't look at it." So I was sitting there holding this glove on it. We get in the truck and we're driving, and we get like 5 minutes, and I look at this glove, and I'm like, "This cannot be good. Like I don't want to hold this." And I remember Sharp, Sharp. I
Mm.
mean, he's funny. I said, "Man, am I gonna lose my eye?" He goes, "I don't know, man, but Sammy Davis, he only had one eye and he got all the chicks." I was like, "What? What?" So we drive, back, and like right before we get to Mercy, like shock wears off,
Mm.
and I got just this intense pain like in my eye. It like feels like it's going all the way to my brain. And it was Thanksgiving Day. I think it was Thanksgiving morning. And like we come in the freaking hospital, nobody's there. And they put me in a chair and they're like wheeling me down there these long dark hallways at Mercy Hospital. I felt like it was in a horror movie. I was like, "Ah, give me some painkillers." They're like running me down the hallway, and they run me down another one, taking me an x-ray and all that stuff. So yeah, anyways, they end up saving the eye. So I still have my eye. This is a prosthetic shell because it just basically shredded the iris. So the doctors said they could see where there were 2 punctures and it tried to rip it out. So the talons pierced. And actually, I had a scratch that came right over my nose and this side. So it almost got 2. And, we figured it was probably an owl because on the way back we were talking and we'd seen so many owls, and the way it hit,
Mm.
what I felt, it was silent. I didn't hear anything. Owls are silent. Flyers, hawks, and they're like jets coming in.
Yeah.
I never heard anything other than those ducks garbling. And so they were able to save the eye, but they had I don't have any vision out. I had for a short time, maybe for a few months, I could just see peripheral vision, like blurs, like light and shadows. Um, but I uh, I lost my left eye. That they had gone in and they put in silicone oil in the eye to keep the pressure up,
Mm.
and they took that out, and then it separated again. So they put it back in. And in that surgery, I remember waking up, I was under a sheet and they had a needle in the eye, filling it up. And I remember I was laying there and I felt it. I mean, I felt it
Yeah.
hurt and I was like, "Oh," and like everything stopped. Like, "Are you awake down there?"
Mm.
I was like, "Yeah." Like hit it. I was out. But right after that, I lost vision in that eye. So I never really uh, regained any of that. And so then I got this prosthetic shell, which it's like a whole eye, but it's just the shell.
Mhm.
So and it was now it feels good when I have it in. 'Cause
Yeah.
when I don't, it's real tender, and it just uh yeah, just one of those things. It's like crazy story, It's like uh yeah, it's
Yeah.
nuts. So that kind of took me off the street,
Yeah.
and that was it was a life change. I mean, I had within 10 years I had like 3 or 4 life changing events, and that was the last one, and it was just one of those life changing events. Like it's like your whole identity is gone. Like everything like it's in a blink of an eye, everything is gone.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Some blank on it.
No, but it's like everything's gone. You can't work. I can't be on the street. Uh, and it was a lot. I mean, it was tough. It was tough getting through that. It was hard. It was because it was I just felt like I kind of lost everything, immediately.
Yeah. Did you continue to work any kind of
I did.
police?
I was off for quite a I was off for probably 3 months
Yeah.
because I think I was in the hospital for like a week, and they were worried about infection and all this different stuff. Um, so I went back, and uh, Greg Taylor, Lieutenant Taylor down there, he was awesome. He put me in criminal intel. So I started working in criminal intel and, ended up doing, uh, a lot of the drug abatement stuff,
Mhm.
and, wasn't like loving it, but of course when you're, I mean, you know, a week before that I was, got in 3 pursuits and 5 foot chases and, hidden houses, and, you go from that to nothing. It's like
And it's
it
not your choice.
and it's not my
Yeah.
choice. Yeah, it was just, and then, my wife at the time accepted a fellowship in Dallas, and it was gonna be a 3-year fellowship, and, you know, she was pregnant, so I decided to leave, and luckily, I the guys who I worked with, the ATF guys in Oklahoma City back then, they were awesome. I mean, they the ATF was one of those agencies that really worked well with local
Mhm.
law enforcement back in the day. And, FBI, DEA, those other DEA did to some extent, but a lot of the other ones, it just did, there wasn't really that cooperation.
Mhm.
And ATF was just awesome. I mean, those guys they were badasses, and so a lot of those guys who I worked with when I was in gangs and impact were now in Dallas. So then when I moved to Dallas, they picked me up, and they said, we need somebody who can go in and to a homicide unit
Yeah.
and right off the bat, start to be able to talk to them, work with them. And um, so I worked a violent crimes program for them, and I did that for 10 years, but it just never was the same.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. So I mean, you went from impact gangs, ATS. Your eye gets taken out by an owl, and you picked up from. I mean, I follow you on Instagram. You pick up a hobby of taking pictures of wildlife,
of owls.
including owls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time you post, I always want to comment, "Is that the motherfucker
Yeah.
that did it?" But
Yeah.
I refrain. So yeah. So I mean, how'd you get started in
In my photography.
wildlife photography? Yeah.
Well, actually, so, when I was a kid, going back to when I was a kid, my brother, he hunted a lot,
Mm.
and
Had all the animals.
I had all the animals, and so I loved wildlife. I mean, when I was a kid, I had all the Audubon books. I had all the, animals of North America, like all of it. I read those books, and about 10 years old, I started taking my dad's camera when we go hunt, and I would photograph, and then I ended up painting. So I would do for, even when I was on the police department, I was doing duck stamp entry competition type
Mm-hmm.
paintings, like real detailed paintings of ducks and waterfowl and deer and turkey and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But it just got to the point, when I was in high school, I wanted to go to the Marine Corps. I got accepted to Pratt Art Institute in New York,
Okay.
in Brooklyn. And I didn't go because, that's not what I wanted to do. But I mean, even as a young, high school, middle school, or junior high, high school, I was painting.
Mm-hmm.
In college, I did a lot of shows, and I made money. That's how I ended up paying for a lot of my college, was going to art shows. And I'd go to art show and sell 6 to 10 paintings for a few $100 each or more. And um, at that time, so I'd always been photographing with, like, film cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And then, by the time I got on the police department, I was mainly just painting. And then this happened with my eye, and I kind of quit doing a lot because the depth perception. I just felt like it would not, it didn't feel good,
Mm-hmm.
with depth perception. And uh, I just felt like just didn't feel right. So I actually went back to photography when I had my kids, and I got back into and that was about the time digital cameras started coming. I
Mhm.
remember we got, when I was on the police farm, we didn't like I don't have hardly any pictures of me, in the department, or like when I played rugby. I would love to have some of the pictures when I played rugby at OU, but we didn't have cameras back
Mhm.
then. Like, I mean, we had them, but not digital
Yeah,
cameras,
yeah.
or phone cameras or anything like that. We didn't have phones. So, um, I really got back into photography with my daughters, and then got back into wildlife. And I pretty much focus on, apex predators. I've photographed grizzly bears, polar bears, great white sharks, orcas, underwater, hunt whales underwater, mountain lions and pumas in Patagonia. I've done gorillas
Mhm.
in Rwanda. Uh, just every year now I run help. A friend of mine is Aaron Bagensauce. He owns Aaron's Tours, and I went on one of his tours. So I searched snowy owl in 2012. Like, they were always my favorite bird growing up, and I just never thought I would actually see one live. Started getting back into photography, and I looked up how to photograph a snowy owl. Like, where do I go to photograph snowy owl? And this guy was running tours in Washington State, and that year there was an eruption in the Arctic, and when there's eruption in the Arctic, too many birds are produced, are
Mhm.
born, and so it forces the birds farther south. So they'll come down into Washington. I mean, we've even had them here in Oklahoma. We had one Arcadia Lake not too long ago, and so he's running these tours. So I booked a tour, and flew up to Washington, and he was doing like on TripAdvisor tours, and he took me out and we photographed. We found a couple, three or four snowy owls, and photographed them. Got great shots, and he was like, "Hey man, get ready, it's gonna fly." And so we were laughing. We had a great time. We kind of hit it off, and he saw my pictures. He's like, "Man, you're nailing these shots. These are awesome." And then I went back home, and about 6 months later, he called me, said, "Hey man, would you want to come to Yellowstone with me?" Yeah, I've never been to
Yeah.
Yellowstone. That's like a mecca for wildlife in the US. So I was like, he's like, "Man, I'll put you, if you want to um, come up, I'd like to talk to you about helping me."
Yeah.
So I went up, and he was running a tour. And so he basically told me, he said, "Man, if you have an interest in helping me, I'll pay all your travel expenses and, everything. And you can come, and I can double he was taking like three people in a Suburban.
Okay.
And he's like, "If you come, I'll rent another Suburban, and you can take three people, and we'll go out."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Yeah, it's no brainer to me." So started traveling, kind of helping him build his business. And now he's got $1 million company. I mean, he's in the field 200 days a year all over the world. So I've been, fortunate enough to be able to help him and go kind of all over the world photographing these, animals. And so that's, how that all started. Now, so how they're one of my favorite favorite
Yeah.
birds.
That was gonna be my next question. So you've had a ton of animals.
Yeah.
Are owls still your favorite, or do you have a different
They're kind of definitely now it'd be orcas.
Yeah.
Like, orcas are, you know, I loved, I've photographed, uh, grizzly bears up in Alaska, polar bears kind of up in the Arctic, which those were always awesome. But, and, the whole Yellowstone wolves and everything's cool. But I had a friend who, I was going to be in Cabo. She's from Mexico City, Alejandra Quaid. She's like a awesome photographer, and she's gone on some of the tours. And I was in Cabo, and I called her one time and said, "Hey, is there any good like tours in Cabo to run, anything to shoot, to photograph?" And she's like, "Oh, I'll meet you in Cabo." And she goes, "We're going to photograph mako sharks. So rent an underwater housing." I was like, "What?" Like, so rented this underwater housing, and we went out, and I didn't know what I was doing. She help me pressurize it and get it
Mhm.
everything. So we go out and we go out for mako sharks. And I've never done anything underwater. And we go out and they're chumming the water. We're out in the Sea of Cortez, chumming the water, and they're talking about these mako sharks and how fast they are and how many teeth they have, and how one guy said they're like great whites on cocaine and they're fast, and you have to keep your, they're talking about having they have a seventh sense, which is, or they have a sense of electromagnetic,
Mhm.
so they'll come after your camera, and so you have to push them off and always keep your fins in between and kick them off, and you know. Uh, Always look them, keep your eye on them. I was like, "Well, I only got one eye, like, I can't see anything here." So I was like, so I was getting worried. I was like, "Man, am I really gonna," like, I was like, "Shit, can I do this?" Like, I don't wanna punk out, but this is crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. And some of those Makos are, they can be like, I just saw one not too long ago, it was 15 feet. Like, they're huge and they're fast and they're,
Yeah.
you know, probably more aggressive than, great whites. And, so I was just like, "Man, are we like," I was just like, "Shut up, man, quit talking about it." Like,
Mhm.
it's so about that time, they start like, all of a sudden, he's like, "Let's go, they like start reeling everything in real fast, and, we take off, and there's a pod of 6 orcas, and I was so relieved I wasn't getting in with the Makos. When they said, "Get in," I immediately jumped in on orcas, and I remember I jump in, I hit the water, I'm underwater, and there's 6 coming straight toward me. And they're, quite a ways off, but I can see them. Water super clear. And I'm like, I remember I took like one shot. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is incredible. I was like almost in a trance. And I look over and I remember I jumped in on the back of the boat and everybody else was on the front. So they jumped in. So there are like 4 people, but there's like the distance of this room, and it felt like a football field away. And I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, shit, like, what do I do?" Like, they're coming straight toward me. I look at them and I turn around and they're, like, right in front of me. And they come and they go underneath me, and as they do, I take some shots as they go by, and I remember making eye contact with one, and it was like all the fear left my body, and it was like there was this, like, communication. It was like, "Hey, everything's cool. You're gonna be okay. You're good. We're good. Everything's okay." And they went by, and we had like 5 jumps with them that day, and it was incredible. Like, I was high for 3 days. I went back. I was with Stan. We're at a
Mhm.
conference. Like, I would not shut up talking about this. I was like manic almost. For like 3 days, I was like high. It was just like incredible. And then at that point, I knew I was like, man, I got to do more, like more underwater.
Mhm.
Ended up coming back, buying a housing, and since then I've done great whites out of Guadalupe Island. I've done orcas again. Kenny and I did orcas this last summer and swam with a huge male that we found, and swam with humpback whales and Tonga, and it's just it's probably my new addiction
Yeah.
other than, guns, and it's, but it's like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's such an incredible experience that, like, I've never had an experience like that, you know? So
That's wild.
so that's my favorite.
Yeah. So, kind of transitioning, big topic right now in law enforcement is PTSD.
Mhm.
Uh, do you think that's a valid thing for officers that are in, or you think that's something that when you retire you get? And then did you have any, or has like for you, you kind of found it how, what I mean, your photography and stuff, does that help you kind of cope with the stuff you dealt with on the department in your time on, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, we've talked about it. You and I have talked
Mhm.
about it a lot. Like, I don't really know. I mean, um, you know, with law enforcement, you see in military, you're almost expected to have PTSD, whereas in law enforcement, you're expected never not to have it.
Mhm.
And we've talked about before, like the compartmentalization of, like, you know, it's almost like a continual, stress. Like every day you go in, like you're seeing shit left and right. And it could be twice in a night, or, you go on one day and have the worst call you've ever been on. The next day you have another one, and you just kind of compartmentalize it and, never, have that. I think that, when officers leave law enforcement, I think that's when people have a lot of problems. And I don't know, uh, for me personally, I've had some issues. I think for me personally, it's more like straight up spiritual warfare type thing. Um, I know, you know, we've looked at interviews like Ed Smith where he had a lot of problems for a lot of years. So I don't know. Yeah, I think when officers are on duty and working, they're just so busy and so inundated with seeing so much that I really think that when they leave, they don't have the support structure that they have when they're on the street, because they don't have a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
and they find themselves without their partner or without their unit or without their division. And yeah, I don't really know how or what I feel about PTS. I don't feel like I've ever had anything. I had a something happen that I think was just straight up spiritual warfare, because uh it was a straight up attack. And I'll just so in 2018 I started going through a divorce,
Mhm.
and I found myself, I talked earlier about, I had these major events happen in life. And like a 10-year period, I lost like my brother Mark, who was my hero and my best friend. You know, he got killed in a motorcycle accident. Then I get on the police department. The first major probably thing was the Oklahoma City bombing. Worked that day into the last day the whole time. Um, and then, you know, the next year I get involved in a shooting and end up killing 2 guys. The next 2 years later, I get sued in federal court on that. And then, you know, 2 years later, I lose my left eye. And, so those are all like life-changing
Mhm.
events. But going, leave law enforcement, start this company, end up going through divorce, and end up, you know, find myself one day, like, just out of the blue, just kind of realize that it's been 6 months since I talked to my daughter, like, or had a good
Mhm.
conversation. And there was a lot of parent alienation type stuff going on in my case. And, I didn't really get to see them much. And, um, so that night, it was like I wasn't thinking, "Oh, man, I'm so depressed. I should just take my life." I wasn't thinking that. I wasn't thinking, "Oh, I'm just gonna end it now." But I found myself that night laying in bed and my gun was on the nightstand, and I was just like inundated with this thought of, you know, pick it up,
Mhm.
put it to your head and pull the trigger, do it. And, we were talking earlier about like going to some of these crime scenes and the pressure in the head. And, there was like, it was about 4 hours, pretty intense of this, like, it was, started thinking, I wonder like, what would that feel like? And then there's this, I wasn't hearing voices, but I was like feeling this pressure, like, oh, you won't feel a thing. It'll be over instantly. Just do it. Pick it up, do it. And, you know, at one point I had like an out of body experience where uh I was underneath myself,
Mhm.
like holding myself, and it was like just this weird thing that I never had thought about that, didn't want to do it, didn't feel like that was any answer, yet here I am for 4 hours debating the devil on doing this, and but my and it did probably have a lot to do with I wasn't, I wasn't part of a unit. I was kind of on my own, wasn't seeing my family, wasn't seeing my kids,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think, I don't know. I mean, I believe there is PTSD. I believe a lot of people go through it. I just don't know, uh, is it really PTSD or is it spiritual warfare?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, because yeah, I don't really have a good answer on that. I mean, we've talked about it a lot though, like, uh,
I mean, I think as you take calls, like I take calls every day.
yeah,
You know what I mean, or did took calls every single day, and you see the absolute worst
mhm,
and best, but mostly worst in people, and like things that people do to other people. You just don't fathom it. Like
mhm,
we talked about earlier, like a father killing his 3 young kids and then his wife and then himself. You know what I mean?
mhm,
After telling the grandpa about it and
mhm,
killing himself in front of police officers, and like
mhm,
it's not what people are supposed to do. You know what I mean?
yeah,
To these kids that are dead, and you're like, that's not supposed to be a thing. I'm not supposed to watch a medical examiner carry a body bag with, you know what I mean, a hand. Like she can carry it with one hand because it's such a little kid.
mhm,
And then, you go home that night, you see your kids, and you're like,
mhm,
oh shit, my kids are that age. You know what I mean? Like who the fuck would do that to my kids, or who could
mhm,
do that to their kids? And then you go to work the next day and you're like, oh, dealing with it again. You know what I mean? Or dealing with
mhm,
something else. Like it's almost like it goes away because
yeah,
you have to be mentally ready for that next call. And then I think when people leave the department, that shit sets in.
mhm,
You don't have that next call to like push it away. It's
mhm,
there. It's all you have is your memories of what you took.
mhm,
Not, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have that next call to wash it away or to like,
right,
to replace it.
yeah,
You just sit there and you think and you think and you think, and then you're kind of in your own thoughts. Like you said, kind of spiritual warfare a little bit, where you're
mhm,
just kind of dwelling over the old stuff, like
yeah,
the time I've spent on administrative leave, or like, we go on vacation or something. It seems like every time I go on vacation, I deal with something awful
mhm,
before I go on vacation.
mhm, and then I'd have to deal with that.
Yeah. So like during the day, it's fine. I'm with my
Yeah,
kids. I'm with my wife. Everything's great. And everybody goes to bed, and it's 5 hours into the night, or everybody's sleeping, and I'm sitting there staring at the ceiling going, I wonder what if I would have drove past that house?
mhm,
Like not, you know what I mean? Like things that were completely out of my control. But like
mhm,
in my head, I'm thinking, what if I would have taken a left turn instead of a right turn,
yeah,
and then went up 2 blocks instead of down 2 blocks? And I would have been at that house when this happened, or I would have, you know what I mean? What if I would have done this, or what if I did that? Or, like, what if someone sees my police car outside the front of my house and,
mhm,
tries to kick in my door? Like, my kids are in the other room. Like, you know what I mean? You just have
yeah,
all these like, we were at the fair the other day, and all I could think about was my kids getting taken.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Or getting lost, because
'cause yeah,
for the last 10 years, that's all I've dealt with at the fair is lost kid, lost kid. I
yeah,
lost my kid. I lost my kid. Hey, my kid's missing. Hey, my kid's missing. So you go to the fair with your own kids and you're like, stay 2 inches from me at all times.
mhm,
And they want to be kids. They don't know different. They don't.
yeah,
So I think it wears on you. Obviously, it wears on you. And I think when
oh,
you're
yeah.
out, you don't have that to
Well,
replace it.
that's a great point you made about, like, you don't have anything to take its place,
Mhm.
and and I think that I've said it before on the show, the what ifs are sometimes worse than you know, what if what if
Mhm.
I would have gone through that one intersection, you know, a few seconds earlier, I'd have been dead.
Mhm.
What if this would have happened? What if that would have happened? I think sometimes the what ifs are, you know, sometimes worse than well, a lot of times worse than what happened, and we what if it, especially when you're dealing with your kids,
Mhm.
you know? Um, and I also think that, you know, police, they take so many of these calls, things become normal. Like, they see so much death and destruction. It's like, you know, like, I don't wanna, like, I never thought of killing myself or anything, but
Mhm.
death just seems normal, like, it's just another thing.
Even another day, literally,
Yeah.
sometimes 2 or 3 times a set,
Mhm.
it's just another thing. It's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that cops don't live long. I know that, you know, police officers, you know, typically live about 5 years after they retire, which is not good, and I think it's a combination of things. I think it's that. I think it's the purpose, and I think it's health because of a lot of times all the years of that stress and what comes along with stress, smoking, alcohol, you know, all these other things that come along with it, and, you know, that doesn't help either. I mean, I had a conversation with my daughter one night, and I was like, "If I would have been drinking that night, you know, what would have happened?" Another what if.
Mhm.
Like, what if? What if what luckily I wasn't, and, but, you know, during that time, I was drinking a lot because of everything that was going on. So, that's just another one of those what if things, you know, that, um, you just look back on and, you know, it's hard to get those, you know, out and
Yeah.
focus on something else. Luckily, like I said, I do have so much going on with the photography and company, CCW Safe, and this show and everything else that, you know, I'm busy enough to where,
You can replace it.
yeah, I can replace it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask one more question. It's gonna be a what if, but if you go back and be kind of like that guardian angel on your shoulder, you know, what would what would you say to yourself? What would you have told yourself?
You know, there's a song by John Mayer. It's called War of My Life. It says, "Come out angels, come out ghosts, come out darkness, bring everyone you know. I'm not running, I'm not scared. I'm here and I'm well prepared." And, you know, that night, I would have liked to have that guardian angel on my shoulder because I probably would have, uh, you know, it is exactly that. It's like everyone's here. Like darkness is here, ghosts are here, demons are here. And I guess I did have a guardian angel who when I had that out of body experience, was underneath me. And, uh, you know, but that one became real when I got engaged and I was dancing with my daughter. And I would have said, you know, someday your daughters who are your entire life and you're not seeing them right now, but someday they're going to come back. And someday you're going to be at an engagement party to an amazing woman who you never thought you would ever meet and who is going to give you love that you never had. And that night you're going to be dancing with your daughter that you're not seeing right now. And your other daughters are going to be there and life is going to be good. And this company is going to take off and you're going to have everything. You're going to have things beyond you could ever even imagine. And I would say, Yeah, everyone's here. Like everyone's here, but you're prepared. And because of, you know, raised up with a dad who was a minister, I had a strong faith, and you got to lean into that and rely on that. And things are going to change. Things are going to get better. And that's the biggest thing. It's like that night, I told Jeff, I was like, look what I would have missed. Like, look at all the shit I would have missed. And dancing with my daughter that night, like, it was amazing. And it was like it hit me in that moment. I realized, like, whoa, fuck, what would I have missed? Like, I would have missed this. I would have missed everything. So that would be what I would have told myself.
I love it. I love it, man. I don't know what we'd do without you. Be different for sure.
For sure.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I am.
Glad to be here. And I'm super glad and excited to see what this is going to do, You know, after doing some of these interviews, I've kind of been blown away. And at first, it was just like, I want to tell these stories, these untold stories of these people who are just had these awesome stories, like they need to be told. And then after the more it goes, it's like, man, there's a lot of learning that could be done from these stories, And as a lieutenant, you're in a position now to where you're you're able to teach
Mm-hmm.
people, and it's, I'm excited to see what this does.
So am I. I think that's all. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all we can do is learn, We can only learn and get better. I don't think you can ever be perfect at something, especially law enforcement. If you think you're the best, then you need to go somewhere else. It's all it is learning.
Yeah.
And you can never be the best at this job.
No,
There's no way.
you've got to be open.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think was so, impressive with Brian Costanza, his views on just being humility and trying to be humble and accepting everything as learning and moving forward. And I think that's the biggest thing with, retirement, if you want to call it that or whatever. But after leaving law enforcement, just the 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 idea of just moving forward, just like keep moving forward, you know.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I appreciate you. Appreciate me do your drive.
thanks, man.
It's way harder than you make it out to be, for sure.
You did great, man.
No, struggling. I appreciate it, bro.
All right, man.
Love you, man.
I love you too, man.